to this second webinar of the economy of Francesco. Welcome. Today we will have an amazing guest and an amazing topic focusing on energy and poverty. Just two words about this webinar. This webinar is organized by the Scientific Committee of the Economy of Francesco, and we are trying to give some inspiration to move towards a post-COVID better world. So our focus is to give to you some inspiration to go ahead and to build together a new regenerative society according to the contents of the economy of Francesco. My name is Giulia De Tomati. I'm the founder of a B Corp that is called Invento Lab. We are especially focusing on education for young generation. So we help young generation to make the difference. Today, we will speak about energy, poverty, and young generation because we have amazing guests to discuss this topic and to involve you and to engage you on this topic. So just two words, because first of all, I like to share with you all the rules of this webinar. So if you like to write down in the chat who you are, your position, your email, even if we can see each other, we can know that you are here. And so this could be beautiful for us. And then if you like to ask some questions to Father Wilson, then I will introduce all the guests that we have here. If you like to share your questions, you can do it, and you can write down your question in the chat. And our staff is selecting some questions that we will share and discuss during this hour together. So then you can actively engage by using our social network. So the Facebook channel, the LinkedIn channel, the YouTube channel, and the Instagram, you can be engaged in this hour together. And so these are the rules of the games. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all the organization for organizing this webinar. A special thank you for Maria, Lourdes, and for Maurizio for organizing this webinar. And then let's go ahead. I will introduce our participants of today. First of all, as you know, we have Father Wilson, and then we have other four people here. We have, I'd like to say thank you for being here to Luigino Bruni, that is one of the main organizers of the economy of Francesco, and is professor of political economy at LUMSA Universities of Rome and president of the Civil Economy School of Loppiano. Then we have here Andrea Sovani, that is a facilitator and a project manager with a great experience in international cooperation, especially in East Africa. So we have a young person that can bring his experience on energy and poverty related issues. Then we have Andrei Thomasos Emmer as a philosopher here, so a young philosopher on board. Thank you, Andrea, and thank you, Andrea, for being here. And then we have Giovanni Avocadri, that is, thank you, Giovanni, that is a teacher with a strong experience in difficult suburbs. So I think that he can bring a valuable contents to the discussion. And he met in 2007 Father Wilson. So then we can know deeper about later on we can go deeper into the experience of our guest, and we can have like an open discussion. So I will leave the stage to Luigino Bruni, that will introduce Father Wilson for you. Thank you.
I have to speak in English, no? Is it in English? Yes. No, just to be clear. And no, thank you very much. Thank you, Giulia. Thank you to the participant. I know some of you, in particular very well Giovanni Avogadri, a bit Padre Wilson. I'm happy to know the other colleagues here. And my role is just to say 2 words of introduction. I'm very 2 minutes just to leave room to people who have some more relevant issues, ideas to share with us. Now we are in the COVID emergency. We are towards a post-COVID world. The real risk of this moment of humanity is that the world after COVID will be exactly the same as the world pre-COVID, with some more poverty more, because there is no guarantee, no sign that people will learn something from this disease. Because I don't know in other country, but in Italy, people now we are just starting the phase 2.0 of the crisis, and people really like to go back to the life before. There is actually, it's very difficult to see some lessons from this crisis, because people like to forget the suffering. And then in particular, is not clear at all in the majority of people that this crisis is not just a health crisis, but also a crisis of the capitalism, because for people this is just a sort of health crisis, a virus crisis, and not a crisis of our style of living. And then Father Wilson and the people here are interesting things to share with us, because they were living in a different way before COVID. And then because there was something interesting, important, revolutionary before, maybe it's possible that something interesting will continue after. Because I think 2 months are not enough for a change of paradigm. We know that the people of Israel changed a lot after the exile in Babylon, but the exile lasted 70 years, not 2 months. 2 months is not enough, in my opinion, for imagining nothing will be as before. Not this very common sentences we hear in Italy in the last 2 months. Of course, there is a lot of suffering, there is a lot of poverty, new poverty, a lot of what is sure that inequality will grow. This is something that is already evident, that the people with problems. I don't know if those of you teach at school, as I do. We know already that the good students, the students with skills, they don't suffer a lot with homeschooling, but students with problems are not exactly in the same situation, because we will leave the virus will leave our school with more inequality than before. This is something quite sure. Students with of linguistic minority are losing a lot of Italian language in the last few months, and so and so. Then, just to conclude, to leave the stage to Padre Wilson. Padre Wilson is living in the last more than 20 years, maybe 30. I'm not sure exactly the year of the beginning of the experience. This wonderful experience in the periphery, in the favelas, in the surrounding area, Florianopolis. But what is sure is that the experience of Father Wilson is carry on, is one of the most original revolutionary experience I never met before. It's not just a lip service because Padre Wilson is here, but I never went to his experience, but I talk with him, I talk with many people living there. And then I think poverty, development, wealth, social inclusion, I think there are very few people that can say more, can say words more interesting and more true than Padre Wilson. Then just the last word, what Padre Wilson is doing is not just a matter of experience. There is also ideas, there is also thought. There is another way of imagining the world. It's not just to say in Italian, testimone, witness. No, there is something more. There is a testimony with ideas, with a Weltanschauung, with another philosophy of life, another philosophy of poverty, another philosophy of the church, another philosophy of communion. And then I'm very honored, very happy to leave the stage to Padre Wilson and to listen to him.
Olha, eu penso que a solidariedade, ela nasce do coração. A solidariedade não nasce de decreto. A solidariedade não nasce de teoria. Então a solidariedade nasce do coração. E dar o melhor que nós temos é dar-se diariamente por inteiro a cada pessoa que a gente encontra. Meu nome é Wilson Gro, eu moro na periferia há 36 anos e há 37 anos que eu fui ordenado padre. Olhar pelos olhos dos outros é compreender de que a vida é um ato generoso com as pessoas. Penso que nós vivemos um mundo muito forte da crise da palavra. Tua palavra ela é a extensão dos teus braços, do teu corpo. E se ela é a extensão dos teus braços e do teu corpo, ela não pode ser uma palavra vazia. Olhar a partir dos olhos do outro, da outra, é entender um pouco a metodologia de Jesus. É olhar a partir de baixo, é agachar-se, é colocar-se na mesma reciprocidade. E aí olhar, por exemplo, o mundo das crianças, dos adolescentes, a partir da esperança dos seus olhos e a partir do contexto da sua realidade, é um olhar que é capaz de sentar do lado com. É o olhar não com o olhar do dano. Agora, se eu olho essa criança que tem um potencial, que tem uma esperança dentro, se eu olho essa juventude que é um capital social, esse olhar é um olhar extremamente transformador, é um olhar pensante, é um olhar sensível. E com a rede nossa, o que a gente promove, talvez é a nossa grande inovação, que é um caminho em que jovens, os adolescentes de 6 anos podem entender que eles podem chegar até a universidade ou eles podem abrir a perspectiva para um curso profissional, se não vão à universidade. E esse caminho de complementariedade no trabalho em rede, esse olhar em rede, é capaz de ter um processo alternativo ao processo hoje do narcotráfico. Que são projetos capazes de abrir uma clareira dentro dessa realidade para a juventude, hoje nos territórios empobrecidos. Isso é fundamental. E a rede toda está em torno de 5.000 crianças, jovens e adolescentes. e mais o trabalho que a gente tem na África, que é com 1324. Se hoje a gente fala de um sonho de Champagnat de 200 anos atrás, o que nós fizemos nas unidades ligadas aos maristas é como recuperar a essência desse sonho. O sonho é alimentador e quem caminha sonha. E só é possível fazer caminho se nós somos capazes de sonhar. Só que um sonho que se sonha só é apenas um sonho, mas um sonho que se pensa junto, ele pode se tornar uma realidade.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to thank the Academy of Francis. I would like to thank, on behalf of everyone, Luigino Bruni, for this opportunity to meet with you, you dear youth, because it's you. You are a present for our hope, our big hope. You have a big challenge given to you by Pope Francis. Just like he says in his plan for rising again. We need to rise into a new civilization of love and of hope. Against anguish, against fear, against sadness and isolation. A civilization of love you construct every day. With a force that is required by everybody. This presupposes a living together of brothers and sisters. Along my way, as a priest in the peripheries of the cities, that has animated me in the 80s, was a text of Jesus. This from Jesus animates me every single day. It's the 25th chapter of Matthew. The text that says, everything that you did to the smallest of my brothers, you did for me. This is what animates everything that I do, to give an option concrete, an option that's concrete for the people that live in the peripheries, even the most poor of everyone. Since the beginning, I looked at this territory and how it had a giant social capital. That means solutions and potential within it. And so, since that moment, it became my place to speak from. It became a place and let me know, taught me how to do with and never to do for. This itinerant journey and methodology is a way to work against the unfortunate history and culture of Latin America. This is the way that was developed and spoken about in the Episcopal conferences in Aparecida and others. To begin and to construct from these experiences, it allows us to open stories and languages, to enter into people's languages and memories and stories. To open up the codes of each culture and to make a new effective and effective strategy. To let us soak in, be drenched in the reality of these cultures is to distribute indifference. Listening to these stories, and every single day letting myself be rekindled by this necessity to change has opened up a new way to act. So I lived through this in many memorable historic moments in the 80s, the dictatorship and the opening up into democracy. And now we've been able to connect the peripheries with the rights to living, to housing, and access to the city. Small and big victories have been a victory, have been a real gift. And so we start working with people, young people from age 6 and on, to teach, to work in education. It's a great adventure that becomes a network. We work in a network, always a network of projects. It's a project network to materialize dreams. Welcome children starting from age 6 until 24 years old. We work to donate everything they need that paves a way for the child to develop himself until he can even get into the university. A lot of these people who have taken this path, they're continuing to be involved with our projects. They're administrators, they're educators, they're environmental activists, and they're in their own communities. They are creating an alternative to drug trafficking, creating new paths and points of reference for success in these territories. And each one becomes a new beacon of hope. There are no ready and prepared paved paths. So we go paving as we walk. And dreams are fed by walkers. Therefore, along this path, we broke the boundaries between the center and the periphery, connecting young people from the periphery with young people from the middle class, universities, institutions, and entrepreneurs. This generated a common public space to fight for rights and a large network of more than 5,500 kids, adolescents, and young people. In the recent years, we also took this experience to Guinea-Bissau on the African continent. Now, building some technological centers that can amplify this network through working with the technological companies. And these centers are possible thanks to these companies that are the most important economic center in Florianopolis. Entrepreneurship and all of these projects are based in a vision that is contemporary, ecological, and collaborative, and that Pope Francis encourages us to get involved with. Also working with relationships that are cooperative and collaborative. We consider it urgent to promote this expansion, this amplification of spaces, and to promote new forms of economic survival. The practical experience of social justice and ecological justice as inalienable pedagogies in the construction of a new citizenship. These spaces will be open for young people in a new form to understand the world, in a new form to go back to the normal of before in the periphery. It's necessary to create an open space for the youth in all of the world so that they can contribute and transform the periphery as great laboratories for our common home, like Pope Francis says, starting from learning about a good standard of living and how to create space in the periphery and these centers to be open for all of the youth in all of the places in the world, that together we can transform the world. Looking at the favelas and the peripheries as a giant gift for all of the world. Look, this is a small contribution of us to build this new economy that's more fraternal and consistent with Christian teachings. As Pope Francis says in his apostolic exhortation, let's not allow ourselves to be robbed of the community. Let's never tire of our decision to live in fraternity. And Laudato Si says, everything's interconnected. If we live in a Trinitarian relationship and develop a spirituality of global solidarity, we'll transform the world. And so these words from Pope Francis, they keep us happy. They make us roll back the stones of indifference in globalization. The words of Pope Francis, they help to become, and to help youth to become engaged and capable to bring forth any new efforts to edify this new collaborative solidarity world without fear, to get involved with dignity and promote the dignity of everyone. And so thank you very, very much for everyone who's here, to everyone who's fighting in the periphery. Thank you, and I'll give back the word to Luigino.
Thank you very much, Father Wilson. Very beautiful words, a beautiful reality. And I think now is the time for listening to our friends here, their comments. I give back the word to our chairperson.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if Andrea, Andrei, and Giovanni wants to share their thoughts with Father Wilson, it will be great. And also, if they want to select maybe after some questions from the audience, it will be great also to share the thought also with the public. Thank you. Andrea, would you like to start?
Yes. I would like to refer to the intervention of Padre Wilson. He said that since the beginning of his experience, he looked at the impoverished territories as a great social capital, having potentials and solution within them. I'd like to ask Father Wilson if you can explain a bit better what does it mean when you say that this great social capital has potential and solution. Thank you.
Andrea, thank you for the question. To understand the territory like a big social capital and potential is coming from this place. This is that within that place, it has solutions. In my experience, to learn how to do with and to learn how to work. Empowers people. When we work from the ground up in the periphery to understand the potential from people's own experiences own traditions. It's important that people don't lose the potential that the periphery has in its most deep experiences. To do with is enter within, is to work from people's own experiences. We're living together and look at those experiences to use as instruments for potential and possibilities. We need to look from two perspectives always. Look from the perspective of looking at a periphery with big social capital, and how this is connected like a tree to other networks. This is a vision that is often passed on by the mass media or missed by the mass media. But like Pope Francis says, solidarity with these spaces is a way to better the world. And this, if we look at Paulo Freire, the famous pedagogue, he talks about how lots of people, it's well documented around the world and throughout history, and even Jesus has already done this to meet people where they're at and to respond. And I'm responding to your question in this form, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Father Wilson, for the inspiration you gave to us. Thank you, Andrea. I'm just reading the comments, and some people say, thank you, Father Wilson. Dreams are fed by walkers. Thank you, Father Wilson, for your witness and your very inspiring words. So we have people from all over the world now that is listening to your words. And so I say thank you to you for inspire us. And I like to say, to ask to Giovanni if he wants to share some thoughts to open the discussion with Father Wilson. Thank you.
Wilson antes diz que ele começou
Wilson said before that he started
36 anos atrás
36 years ago
a trabalhar, viver mesmo
to
na
work and
favela.
to live in the favela.
Antes que ele fosse criado, fosse padre, fosse
Before he became a
sacerdote,
priest, father,
ele começou como seminarista.
he started as a seminarian.
Eu queria
So I want to
voltar pouco ao
go
início
back a little bit to the beginning.
da experiência de Wilson. Mas qual é que foi a tua motivação profunda
What was your deep motivation
para se mudar desde o seminário teológico
to change since the theological seminary
pela favela? Por quê?
to move to the favela? Why?
A tua opção para fazer para começar a tua experiência mesmo como
What was
seminarista?
your thought? Why did you start this experience already as a seminarian? Yeah, thank you, Giovanni. I thank you for the question. So
Thank you, Giovanni.
I would say one of the most important points in my life was my own family. I'm from a family of workers. 11 brothers and sisters, a family. That was 13 people within our house. And that was my first experience of the construction of the collective. The construction of a family that had to fight to put everything in common, to have a way to live a good quality of life and to survive. This was the basis of my own journey. At 15 years old, I started in the military, syndical military. That became a political fight as well. So when I was doing high school, at the end of high school, we were living right within a dictatorship. We understood the importance of revolution, of ways to exit. But this was an inundation that was really important to understand the gospel. To understand the gospel, when I was a youth, I was in a small group of youths. And this group was from the Focolare movement. And they exchanged experiences of Chiara and put everything in common. This was a way to go against the current, to put everything in common, and to exit our impoverished reality together. So looking through history, the biggest experts and the masters of education and philosophy, they taught me how to look at things, look at theories, look at practices critically, to understand how to look at the world from a more realistic, a deeper perspective. So in the 80s, we left the dictatorship, and I saw how Brazil entered into democracy. We entered into the fight of social justice and the construction of social works, the liberation theology, and a mystical experience actually emerged from this. A mystical experience that emerges from working with the poor. And I went to the periphery to experience this mystical and theological experience. And after I understood that the periphery was, in fact, a mystical space. To understand and to work with this periphery would allow everyone to enter into this mystical reality, working with God. And so, for this reason, to enter into this deeper reality, this deeper dimension of efficacy and love, to be more coherent to what Jesus was saying, and to live in the reality that the majority of the world lives, it was for these experiences that for about 40 years, I've lived within this process of the peripheries of Florianopolis, working and developing in all of these questions. But at the beginning, the ideal of the Focolare, the ideal being the word of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus, to understand and to recognize Jesus, not with just words, but with gestures and actions that are concrete, that build the kingdom of God in the world of poor people. That is the way to get out of this reality. To understand and to construct ecclesial communities. That has become the focus of my life and my mission. And every single day, I get animated and engaged in this question. Thank you very much for your question. I hope I responded well. But this is my daily struggle to embrace this. And it can be a cross. It's a way to get crucified even. But as Pope Francis says, my pain, if we enter into this pain, it can destroy all the pain in the world. So this conviction fuels me every single day. And it's from that space, that understanding, that allows me to realize and to manifest the world that could be possible here. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you, Father Wilson.
Obrigado para você, Wilson.
Sorry for interrupting you.
No.
Thank you for sharing these important thoughts. I think that we touch a lot of important topics such as interdependence, education, and so now I like to invite Andrei to share his perspective as a philosopher, and so we can have a discussion with many point of views. Thank you.
Eu lhe agradeço muito, Padre Wilson,
pela
Thank you very
belíssima
much,
experiência
Father
de
Wilson,
vida que
for your
me toca
beautiful
profundamente.
experiences
Eu
that are touching me
recordo, a partir dessa
profoundly.
fala, a poesia do poeta Zé Vicente, que cantamos muito na caminhada da Igreja do
It
Brasil,
reminds me a
Cidade
lot of poets and
Tubarão.
people who are talking about
Jovens
people
unidos
living
na
in the
esperança
periphery,
gritarão. A força nova é o poder do amor, nossa
talking about a
fraqueza
new
é a
force
força do
against
libertador. Por
our
isso,
own
eu
weakness.
lhe faço esta pergunta. O
Okay,
Senhor nos
Wilson,
fala
I'm going to make
desde
you
o
this.
território de muitos desafios, para os
Here's the
quais o
question.
Senhor
You
apresenta
speak
um
to us
caminho de
from a
estudo,
territory of many challenges,
aproximação
for which you
e
present a
ação
path
para a
of
transformação
listening,
social. Para o
approximation,
Senhor,
and action for
quais
social
são os melhores
transformation.
caminhos
For
para
you,
o Brasil
what are the best
em
paths for
tempos de
Brazil
resistência,
in these times of
para
resistance to
a consolidação
for the
de políticas
consolidation
públicas
of policies
vinculadas ao território,
linked to
à
the territory,
moradia, ao
housing,
trabalho digno
decent work,
e ao acesso à cidade?
and access to the city?
De que modo o empoderamento feminino e a
In
renda
what way
básica universal
are women's
são
empowerment and
vetores
universal basic
positivos nesse
income
processo?
positive vectors in this process?
Muito obrigado.
That question, without any doubt, I lived for many, many days in this constant seminary. Since the first days in the seminary. Look, I think in Brazil, after the dictatorship and even in the democracy, the last 40 years, we have made many experiences in social movements. To understand how the government can take millions of people out of poverty, and then all these people go right back into poverty. It's a world that's impoverished, and it's a world of poverty. So to look at our history, and to look at our history in the construction of the democracy in these last 40 years of fighting, of social movements, and not to lose the memory of a history constructed, not lose the memory of constructing things, of the methodologies and analysis of judgment, of help to understand this context of various crises, whether sanitation or finance or political. We have to recover our memory. Memory is important because memory brings us forward, a deep memory to perceive our own errors, to perceive what we lack, and to understand, to perceive what the future could look like. So to understand and to perceive a different path and the consolidation of goodwill, especially during this pandemic, we have three big aspects to look at. And then to bring us forward. The first one is the environment. The perspective of Laudato Si that Pope Francis brought to us, it's a great prophecy. It's not possible to continue irrationally developing the planet in this irrational way. Still with this dichotomy between the rich and the poor. This is what Pope Francis brought to us, and it's a path that we have to fight for. It's not possible to live in this common home without encountering each other. We have to understand how the society of living well, and the indigenous people, for instance, who hosted the synod, they started working on this issue. So there's a dimension of social equity that we need to arrive at. So the social indifference can't be naturalized, it can't be normal anymore. So within this pandemic, we have understood better how we have these dimensions. And so within this dimension, we need to still look at these poor territories and to look at the perspective of the infrastructure and how things are being created in general. In Brazil, how many people are living in this pandemic? Well, look, we can see that the virus is democratic, at least. It affects the people of different colors, the people of different creeds, the indigenous peoples, rich and poor. So, to construct a new reality of public policy and everything coming from below, not coming from the government, from the top, the structures from before, but to start from the bottom is how we'll be able to construct our way out of what was before. To work in a network, always constructing a network. It's important to facilitate the connection to the city. It's inalienable, this right, especially the empowerment of women also. I think about the last 40 years in Latin America and in the world where the women have taken on a huge role and they continue to fulfill an important role. I look at today within this pandemic, is also at food, the food system. It's the women who are, and the mothers who are the protagonists who are helping us to create this new world. The importance, without a doubt, that we can create a universal basic income with a way out of social inequality. This is what Pope Francis is talking about, how to create a universal network within this process. That is how I believe we can construct ways that's fundamental, that we can construct these ways. Thank you for your question. I don't know if I answered it, but that's what arrived in my heart when you asked me.
Thank you. Thank you for all this inspiration, and thank you for sharing thoughts about the importance of gender equality, of the environment, of the access to resources. And now, before you mention also the importance of the cooperation, and within your speech, you were speaking also about the technological centers and the partnership. So I will let Giovanni to maybe open a discussion, especially on this topic. So how we can build cooperation with these technological centers. I will leave you the words.
Desde a primeira vez que eu fui
Since the first time that I went
em Florianópolis,
to Florianopolis,
na casa e no
your
contexto
house, in that
onde
context in which
o Padre Wilson vive
Father Wilson, you're
e,
living
e trabalha,
and work.
Wilson me falou de que
Wilson said to me that
a situação de um ponto de vista cultural e social
at a cultural point of view and social
e também econômica
and also economic
entre a periferia e o centro
enters
da
in the
cidade
periphery and the center of the city.
Poderia ser
Between those two.
descrivida, poderia ser
So it
analisada
could be described or analyzed
como uma palavra muito dura, muito
with a strong
forte,
word, a
que
very
ele
strong and hard word.
utilizou de apartheid.
He used the word apartheid.
No tempo, nos 36 anos que Wilson trabalhou nesta
Right, in the 36
situação,
years that you've been working in this situation,
o morro, o bairro onde Wilson
The
mora
neighborhood
e
where
trabalha
Wilson lives and
é,
works
é dos bairros, dos
is one
morros
of the neighborhood,
da,
of the walls
de periferia, digamos assim, de
periphery.
exclusão
Yes.
social.
With social exclusion.
E a minha impressão sempre,
My impression always,
caminhando pelas ruas da cidade
walking along the streets of the city
e conhecendo os projetos
Getting to know the
educativos e
the educational projects,
de capacitação,
and
de trabalho,
the work, all the work,
ou trabalho com moradores de rua,
or to work with workers in the streets, people who live in the streets,
os projetos
the projects
que o Wilson trabalha, leva à frente com a comunidade,
that Wilson is bringing to the front as a community.
São projetos vários.
They're various projects
que involucram sujeitos, pessoas muito diferentes.
They involve various subjects, different people, very, very different people.
Mas uma palavra, uma ideia fundamental,
one fundamental idea
que eu encontrei por todos os lados, por todas as pessoas falando, trabalhando com todos os tipos de projetos.
Working in all kinds of types of projects.
A ideia era deconstruir a subalternidade. Deconstruir a subalternidade.
Deconstruct subordination.
Esta ideia foi para mim grande desafio e
this idea was a big challenge for me.
Eu queria
I wanted to
perguntar ao Wilson como é
ask Wilson
que essa ideia começou a ser trabalhada e como se concretiza na praxe concreta.
In the practice, the concrete practice.
Okay.
Thank you, Giovanni, for the question. The question of constructing these things, these processes, to deconstruct the colonization of Latin America, to deconstruct all of the influences of imperialism. That's how construction starts. First, you have to deconstruct what is within the memory of the colonization. That's where the Latin American culture is born, within this historic and cultural context in the revolutionary stories and the imperialistic stories. In the 50s in Latin America, for decades, we lived in dictatorships in lots of Latin America until the 80s. So this moved with sociologists and philosophers working together with everyone. This is helping us to deconstruct subordination. What does that mean? Okay, to bring to the periphery as an experience of protagonism, a way to get out of that reality. So a big pedagogue was Paulo Freire, who taught us about the pedagogy of hope, of autonomy. And within pedagogy of autonomy, it works fundamentally with the deconstruction of subordination that's historical, and to destroy with a process this culture and all the mechanisms that have become normal in creating a disequal society. To break this old perspective and to construct a new social and cultural that's economically viable. We need to go to any space and work with everyone who's all of the stakeholders. And we go reconstructing everything. It becomes, okay, look, it's a big, important process of learning. We're always learning as we're doing, and we're constructing new ways to learn as well. In every dimension that we arrive in, it influences our way of acting, of thinking, of being. And it breaks the processes of oppression, and it can get people out of poverty if I can enter into that reality first. Okay, so how do we do that in the city? We have to do it in the city where people are, where everybody's in, but it has to involve everyone, the middle class, the rich, the poor, step by step. The great challenge is to work with everyone, is to come into contact with this every day of bringing people together. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you, Father Wilson. Maybe Andrea wants to say something. At the end, we are a little bit on late, but we have a few minutes more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Julia. I will be very short. You were talking, and Father Wilson were talking about technological center. So I received a question from the participants I would like to share, but and that's it. How do you think the energetic revolution from fossil fuels to renewable can be used to reinforce the social capital of the peripheries? I don't know if it is clear.
Andre, I think that the transformation of energy from fossil fuels to new other forms of energy, renewable energy, it's a question that we have to discuss and start working. I think, look, this could be a fundamental tool to empower the peripheries, because in this form, we bring together this energy, this kind of energy. This helps us to articulate how people in the periphery can construct a real life. The importance of technology and to use technology in the dimension of cooperative processes. In cooperatives, that's where we can construct ways out. These ways out, they have to take care of the environment, producing new clean energy to reconstruct impoverished territories. I think that we have a big way ahead of us, a lot of potential to work with poor people with clean energy. Mauro Passo, he works, for instance, in this dimension in Florianopolis, and it's necessary maybe to put technology right at the service of these poor territories. So this is how we can understand how we live in a common home together and destroy the old way of developing that's linear to reconstruct a new way of development that is connected with everything. And the question of food security, from human rights to work in networks, cooperatives, to be innovators with small projects, self-management. This can be possible especially with energy every single day, especially with the youth. So it's important, the research is important, and it's important to bring people into the periphery. That's where the potential is. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Andrea, for the question. It was very important, I think, also to underline the topic of energy, of resources. And I don't know if maybe we have like one more question from the public, like a little bonus for you, even if the webinar was supposed to be concluded at 5, but maybe since we received a lot of questions, maybe we can listen to another one, and then I will say thank you to whom. Maybe if someone from the staff wants to read a question.
Yes, I may take the word. There is a question from the public that demands, could Father Wilson share some insight on how to approach and identify the needs of a community? Because sometimes the help they receive is not exactly the kind of help they need the most. And if you could, I would like just to add, Father Wilson, if you could add something regarding the needs regarding the topic of energy. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, sure. The question is this. Could Father Wilson share some insights on how to approach and identify the needs of a community? Because sometimes the help they receive is not exactly the kind of help they need the most. And I just add, if it's possible to identify the needs in terms of energy of this community. Thank you.
Father Wilson looks frozen at the moment.
Okay, if it's not working, just wait 1 minute more, and then I will share with you like the next webinar that we have in program. Okay, no, does it work?
I think we can also conclude if
Yeah,
if the time was 5
yeah.
o'clock, because with Padre Wilson we will have sure other moments of sharing, because it's so important and so deep his experience that 1 hour is impossible to explore all dimensions. But I think were in many very, very deepful insights, issues in this hour. Also, thank you to all the panelists, in particular to Padre Wilson, of course, because it was very inspiring afternoon for me,
Yeah.
and I think not just for me.
Yeah, I think for everybody it was a very interesting afternoon together. I like to say thank you to all the team, especially also to Tom for helping us with the translation, for United World Project, for a special thank you to Maurizio, Lourdes, Maria, and all the young people that help with the organization of this webinar. If you like to keep in contact with us, there are the social media, so I suggest you to be active on the social. And then I will want to invite you all to join the next webinar on May 21 at 4:30 p.m. with the Professor Kate Rathworth from Oxford University. So this is another unique occasion to speak about environment and about how to build a better future after this crisis. Thank you all.
Grazie a voi, ciao. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you, goodbye.
Thank you,
Grazie
bye.
a tutti, ciao, goodbye.
Obrigado.